Hi guys, we are going to make a really fun little project here that you can keep for yourself maybe, or maybe give it as a gift. It's a nice little jewelry holder, and it uses really great things we've already learned, straight stitches and lots of other things. It will have a drawstring that we'll put in as well, and it'll be something really easy to do. So please watch this video and go step by step on what you need to do to make this jewelry holder. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we need to cut our fabric for the circles. And so we are going to, using these templates, you're gonna cut two 14-inch circles, and you're also gonna cut two 11-inch circles. And now we're also going to cut two 11-inch circles. And once again, you can use any pen to mark it. I've doubled my fabric because I'm going to use the same fabric on the front and in the back, so it doesn't matter. You could do it completely different if you'd like. If you want to have 4 different pieces of fabric, you can. And then just use your rotary cutter. And then we're going to go ahead and cut our others on this one here. And I do know I'm going to switch my blades here because I think this one's a sharper one. Oh, yeah, she's sharp. All right, there you go. Now we have our 2. So then you're going to take one of your large circles, and you're gonna come over, fold it in half, doesn't matter, just fold that circle in half, and just get a nice little press seam here. And we're only using this to make a mark with our grommet. Okay, next what we need to do is, after you've ironed your one large circle in half, we're gonna mark about 1.5 inches from the edge. And so right here, 1 to 2, here is 1.5 inches on both sides, and that's just a mark so we know where to put our little grommet. Then what we're going to do really quick is we're going to make a little tiny hole with the seam ripper, and I'm going to help you with this part just because, unless you think you got it together, but we're just going to make a little hole. See, that hole is not real big, just enough for our grommet to go through. All right, just like that. And you can see just a teeny hole. There we go. And then we're gonna take our little handy dandy machine here, and you get to decide if you want it gold or silver. And I'm gonna take silver because I think black and silver look good together. And we need 2 different pieces for that. And this is ultimately where the drawstring is going to go through. And we have to do that before we ultimately sew it together. Otherwise it's together and we can't do it. And so we put our grommet in the grommet machine. I'm sure there's a term for it. I don't know what the term is, but a little pliers. And then we ultimately put it right over the hole. And I'll help you with this. If our hole isn't too big, it works out pretty well. I'm just gonna make sure it's in the middle. Looks like it's in the middle. And then I'm gonna push down, squeeze, and voila, there is our hole. And then we just take a nice little hammer and we hammer it down just to make sure it's nice and tight. Worked out pretty darn slick, wasn't quite in the middle. And then we do that on the same side as the other. All right, so now we have our grommets in, as you'll see, and you're gonna put the right sides of the fabric together. And in this type of fabric, it's pretty tough to tell which right side, so I think you can't go wrong either way. But we are going to sew completely all the way around this circle, and we're not even gonna leave an opening. And that might seem kind of weird, but I'll tell you what will happen shortly. And here, we're just gonna go press our foot away. It's the easiest to remember, easy to follow. And so we're gonna go press our foot away. When you start, don't forget to do a back stitch.
started.
Okay, now we're gonna take our sewn circle back to the iron, and we're gonna ultimately do the same thing again. We have our fold here, but we need to make one more fold so we have the middle. So ultimately we're finding the middle of our circle, and by doing that, the middle will cross, and that's where we're gonna cut a little hole to ultimately, and you can see there, that's where we're gonna cut our hole. So the next thing we have to do is we need to, where this little X is, we need to cut a nice little hole. Now you're gonna cut on the side that the grommets are not on. And because the first one I made, I accidentally cut on the other side. So I was like, ugh. So all we're gonna do is, once we find the middle here, we're just gonna cut right along the seam. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just like an inch or so. And then we're gonna do it the other way. See, we have a little slit there. And we'll do the same down each one of these sides. Once again, it's just through one of them, and it's not both. And I'll explain next what we're gonna do. And there's our hole. All right, so now we have this nice little slit here where we're gonna put a little foam backing in there to give us a bottom. But before we do that and before we turn it around, we just need to every 3 or 4 inches, cut a little slit, but you do not wanna cut the thread. You're just cutting up close to the thread, and this is gonna allow the fabric to turn and have a nicer circle. Otherwise, it'll be a little bit more choppy. So every 3 or 4 inches, you go around and do that. All right, we've added the little slits along the sides here. Now we're just gonna open it up and we're gonna turn it inside out. And so now the seams are gonna go into the inside and we're gonna have a nice circle. And then what you ultimately are gonna do, you're just gonna take your scissors and you're just gonna go up and around with them tight, and you're just going to press against the seam all the way around. And this is just going to ultimately push out the seam to make the circle really nice. And you can see how it's coming together as I go around. You don't want to push too hard, just hard enough to get the seam open through. And then ultimately you can tell once you get all the way around when you've made it. And then after that, we're gonna head over to the ironing board again, and we're just gonna iron this nice little circle, the outside of our jewelry pouch, all together. There we go. Now you also need a little base to the bottom of your jewelry pouch. And so you want a 4-inch circle, which have already been drawn out for you. So you're just gonna cut around with the shears. And as you look at the fabric of this foam, you're gonna see that the one side is a little thicker lines. That's the lines that you will ultimately have. I think it's the side here that you'll put down that will get ironed. It'll glue down. All right, so then you're gonna take this. Once again, we're gonna try to find the middle. We're just gonna fold it in half, fold it in half, and there is our middle. And I'm gonna put a little dot there, and then I'll show you where that will match into our other piece. So you can see I put a little dot in the middle where the 4 corners as you fold, and then you're gonna put it inside of this. And then you wanna try to match that dot in the middle. And then you know you have it pretty centered, and that's pretty close. See how where all these match up? Because if you cut it in the corner, that's where that. And then we'll take it to the iron, and then we just press it down, and then that is ultimately the bottom of our jewelry pouch. So here we are at the ironing board again, and now we're just gonna iron down. I'm gonna press some good pressure onto this. And this is going to, one side has a sticky side and it activates to heat. So this way it won't move. And we are set, and this hole will actually be covered by one of your other pocket things that we're making on it. So there we go. So the next thing we're going to do now is sew the smaller 11-inch the exact same way that we did with this one, but without the grommets. So the next thing you need to do is you're going to take your 11-inch circle you cut earlier, and you're going to put the right sides together, or I call it the pretty sides. And just match up as close as you can around the edges. And there we go. And the same thing, we're going to do presser foot away, seam all the way around, and you don't need to stop and leave a hole, because we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut a hole into that in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and presser foot away, and I've also back stitch to seal my stitch. That is. Okay, and then the same thing as you did with the large one. Snip your thread here, and then you're going to go around all the way and just up to the seam. Remember, don't cut that thread when you get there, every 3 or 4 inches, all the way around. Just like the large 14-inch, you also have to cut in the middle of this. You don't have to be as precise with this one. You just have to have it in the middle, and you just don't want it too big of a hole either. So you're just going to cut the dull shears. There you go. And then I'm just going to go here a little bit. Just want to make sure it's not bigger than 4 inches. Otherwise it's not gonna, it could show through. Okay, so see how that is? And then you're just going to take your fabric and turn it inside out. The same exact thing that we did with the large one. Once you have it all the way out, then you just take your scissors and you poke all the way around to get the fabric seams to the edge. Circles is one of the troublesome things. If you don't do that, you can't just iron it because it's out there. So you just poke it all the way around, and then we'll head back to the ironing board and we'll iron it nice and smooth. All right, so we've ironed this nice and flat, but what we need to do now is we need to make lines with creases so that we know where to sew. So we're gonna fold in half, and that's gonna be a crease. And you could also do this, or you could use fabric tape as well if you wanted. And then we're gonna go in half again. Okay, and so now you can see we have an X ultimately, but then we have to go in the middle of these again. Go right in the middle, line up those, and we have an X there. Now we're getting multiples, probably not X's anymore. And I think I have one more, this one right here. So you can see all the lines here. That's really our sewing guides that we're gonna have to create our pockets. So what I've done is I found the grommets on both sides, and now I've taken one of the center lines and I'm just lining it up to the grommet so we know there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stitch from here to here, from here to here, here to here, and here to here. And this is gonna create the pockets. But one of the things we wanna make sure that we do is that we always use a nice back stitch. And what I did was when I laid it on here, I just made sure I eyed it so that it's dead center in the middle. It doesn't have to be exact, but if you're not sure, of course, you always can measure. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna go forward, but I'm gonna back stitch a couple because this is where it's gonna have most of the pressure. And then you just go straight up following that crease. It's gonna go over that foam, but that's okay. And then it's gonna go all the way to the other end. Go nice and slow when we get down to the end. We're gonna go reverse again. Take it out, pull it out, and then cut the thread, and we're ready to do the next one. All right, so we're getting closer to getting our jewelry pouch all together, but now what we need to do is we need to do the drawstring or ribbon, and we need to cut two about 33 inches in length to go all the way around. And so there's one, and I'll get the second, and then we're going to take a safety pin And then we're ultimately going to put that at the end of our ribbon to go all the way around. So we'll use this one right here. We're going to take the safety pin and we're going to put it through here. We're going to add it to the grommet behind. So we're just going to put it right through here and we're going to put it all the way through, and it's going to go all the way around to come back to there. So once you get it all the way around like this, then you can pull your ribbon and then take out your pin, and then you can make a nice little knot at the end. And if you have a bead or something that you want to put at the end so it doesn't go through, that's certainly an option. And I may have one in class that you could look at as an example too, but at this point in time, we're just gonna put a knot in this, and then it ultimately will hold it all together. And we have to do the same thing to the other side. All right, so you can see we went all the way around this grommet through there, and now we're gonna do the exact same thing with this one, and we'll go all the way through, and then we'll secure it with a knot at the other end, and we are just minutes away for being all done.